Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 31st Flutter tutorial. We are going to be looking at the switch, which is very similar to the checkbox or the radio button even, in the fact that it has an on or off. It's graphically different because it switches back and forth. Think of it like a light switch. It's just an easier way of letting the user know what's going on here. So typically you would use this for like a setting of some kind. You know, like do you want to give feedback, yes or no, turn it on or off kind of thing. So we're just going to dive right in here and we're going to say import package, import material, make our main function here. And then we're going to extend the stateful widget. And then we're going to extend the state of that stateful widget. And you notice I've kind of deviated a little bit. I say underscore state instead of my app state, just so it's a little easier to understand what's going on under the hood. I had some questions about the difference between the two. And remember, in Dart, anything that starts with an underscore is private, so that's not accessible outside here. So we're going to say run app. I'm going to make a new material app. I'm going to set the home to new my app. And here we're going to just simply override this, and we're going to say I screwed that one all up. It's been a while since I've done a tutorial. I took a little break over the holidays, so now I'm going to fat finger just everything. There we go. And then here we're going to say override. All right, so pretty simple design pattern we got going on here. We have our main function, which creates a new material app through the run app, and that's what's going to actually run. We have our stateful widget, which is going to hold a state. The state of that is going to be called by create state. And here's the actual state. Now in the state, we're going to call the build function, which remember whenever we build, quotey fingers, we're going to actually render something on the screen. So we're going to return new scaffold. And this is where the real meat of the program comes into play. I'm going to say app bar. Yeah, fat fingered that. We're just going to say switch demo. And in the body, we're going to say new container. And we're going to have some padding in here. And then we're going to have an array of widgets inside of a column here. And in here, we're just going to make a new switch. And you see how it has a value and an on change. So automatically it wants to know, hey, what's going on here? So with that, you should understand that we got to actually set some things here. So let's say bool value equal false. That's our initial value. And then we're going to say void. Then we're going to set the state here. Now in set state, we're going to actually set the value. So we're going to say value equals the value. pretty simple. So we get our initial value here, and then the onChanged, we're going to say maybe if I could actually type. All right, so then we're going to say onChanged value. So then we're going to just simply set the value here. So if you've kind of skipped the previous 30 tutorials, basically what's going on here is we have a private variable called value that we're holding in the state. When the when the switch is actually changed, it's calling this onChange using the value of the current value of the control, whether it's on or off, shoving that into this function here. As you can see, we're calling it there, and we're setting the state. That's very important to call set state, because if you don't do that, well, the state is not saved, and then when the screen's refreshed, nothing happens. Or I should say, if you don't call set state, the screen never refreshes. That's actually more accurate here. And the initial value, or the value that's bound to it, is this underscore value. So we have this private variable here. So let's go ahead and fire this up, run this on our emulator here. Had a lot of positive feedback about the Flutter tutorials. I'm actually pretty happy to see that. I was kind of wondering when I first started these how many people would actually even be interested in it. And it turns out quite a bit of you guys actually are. I was really shocked. For such a new technology, especially in alpha, I mean, it's not even in beta yet, it's still in alpha, there is just a humongous amount of feedback on this. All right, so here's our little switch. You can see we turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And it follows the design pattern very similar to what we've seen previously with checkboxes and things of that nature. So with that, we're also going to check out the, you guess it, the switch list title. Has the same signature here, so we're just going to copy and paste this. And we're going to break this down a little bit more. Whoops. Screwed that all up. I'm so embarrassed. All right, there we go. So with this, we're going to actually add in a few little things here. We're going to say a title. Now, someone did ask, with titles, you're saying new text. Why wouldn't you just put in quotes? Because it's actually expecting a widget. So for the title, you can put anything you want. You can put another switch, you can put checkbox, you can put an image, you can put custom control, anything. I'm just putting a text in there because it's very easy to do that. All right, so we have our title. Let's set the active color equal, we're going to say colors dot red. And for secondary, we're going to say just a home icon here. You notice how off to the left it actually previews it a little bit. We're going to rerun this bad boy. And now we have our switch. And because they have the same value that they're bound to, it doesn't matter which one that we click. The difference being this, you would have to add like extra text or whatever. Well, this is all one control. So you can even click on the little house here and it turns it on or off. So that's it. Simple, easy to use. If you found this tutorial educational or even funny, let me know. Be sure to visit my website, voidrooms.com. Click on tutorials for the source code for this and all other tutorials. It takes you right out to GitHub. And note that this website and everything that you're watching is 100% funded by your donations. That's why I don't have advertising. Hey everybody, this is Brian, and this is the 32nd Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to be doing a little bit different. I know we've kind of gone through checkbox radios and a switch, which all follow almost the exact same design pattern. We literally could have just changed one word, checkbox radio switch, and it would have been the same darn thing. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to cover slider, which is actually set up a little bit differently, and we're going to cover, where is it? It's going to take me a minute to find it here. Of course, now I can't find it. It's the linear progress indicator. Did I pass it already? There it is right here, the linear progress indicator, basically a progress bar. So we're going to cover both of those today. All right, so let's just jump right on in here. I'm going to import the material package for Dart. We need this for our material design widgets. I'm going to set up our basic code pattern here. We're going to have our main function. We're going to extend a stateful widget. And we're going to extend the state of that stateful widget. And in here, we're going to say run app. This is what actually starts the application up. I'm going to make a new material app, and the home parameter is going to be a new my app. So we're just going to make an instance of our class here. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to actually create our state here. And in our state, you guessed it, we have to do our build function. All right, so I've had a few questions about why this is the way this is. So we'll kind of break it down a little bit. We need our import, obviously, for the material design package, these widgets that we're working with. This is all material design. The main, obviously, is where our starting point is, which we call run app. Then we're creating a new material app, which actually wraps in a lot of the material design and the things that we need. From there, we need a stateful widget because we're going to track state. When we quote-unquote track state, we're just tracking that something changed, and we want to see those changes. Now, the difference between a stateful widget and state is minute but major, and I know that's a complete contradiction. Stateful widget means that something in the widget will change. State is the thing that actually changed inside of the stateful widget. So while the stateful widget itself is not changing, the state is changing. The difference between a stateless widget and a stateful widget is the stateless widget does not care about change whatsoever, where the stateful widget, what we're working with, wants to track those changes, which is why we have to call create state. Because we want to say, hey, we have a state, we're going to create it and monitor it. Whenever the build is called within our state, the entire screen is going to refresh, or I should say the parts of the screen that really need a refresh. All of this is kind of held, I want to say, like in memory, sort of, and only the things that changed are really tracked, but then everything's re-rendered to the screen. So that's kind of an answer to that. So in our build, we're going to return a new scaffold. Remember, scaffold is just kind of, well, it's like a scaffold. It's, you ever seen those building scaffolds where they, either build a building or they're, cleaning windows or something. They have to build this structure so people can walk around. That's really what a scaffold is. All right, so the app bar is just our top blue bar here. We're going to set the title parameter to a new text. All right, and then the body, oops, not even there. There we go. So the body is going to be a new container. I'm still kind of out at it. I haven't done tutorials in a while. I'm trying to get back into the swing of it because I'm trying to get caught up. Really, I've got a couple personal projects. Ooh, that is not what I wanted. 32.0, because why not? And for the child, we're going to do a new column. And then we have an array of widgets for the children. All right, so in here, this is where the magic's going to happen. We've got our array of widgets here, and we're going to say slider value is, and we're just going to say 0 for now. We need to go up here and actually create our state. Notice this is a double, not an int. And then we have our unchanged here, which is going to be when the slider actually moves around. We haven't added the slider yet, so this takes a bit of imagination. Break that down into our function. And then we've got our set state. We're going to just say value equals the value. So we're updating our state. All right, now let's actually make this work. So there's our slider, and you notice how the default ones are value and onChange. So it's very, very similar to what we've seen before. And we're gonna break this down so it's a little easier to work with. All right, so slider also takes some other properties. We want a minimum value of 0.0. Remember, it's got to be a double. And a max. And we're going to say 100.0. So let's put that off to the side for a second here. Gonna put the value in there. So we're going to say slider value is, and then whatever our value in state is. And we're just going to run this out to the device. So once it's run, we'll be able to move the slider around and actually see in real time that text widget will change with the slider value. What we're going to do next after this whole thing is actually working is we're going to put the linear progress bar under it. Typically a linear progress bar goes right under this app bar, but I want it to stand out. And you can actually grab this and you can see how it kind of changes. Now you notice because it's a double, it's got this 52 dot blah, all this behind it. So we're going to modify this a little bit. We're going to say value dot round. Take care of that. Hot reload should switch it. Yep, sure enough. Hot reload took into effect. So now we've got a nice min and max and everything in between. So to add to the goodness here, we're going to put our linear progress bar down here. And we're going to tie that into the same value so we can kind of see what's going on. There's our linear progress indicator. Sorry if I called that a progress bar. I'm just very used to doing that. And we're going to say the value. We're just going to tie it into the value that we're using. But we're going to multiply that by 0.01. That way we get an actual positive number here. See, nice and smooth. And let's actually say and let's just grab this. Not sure if we can even do this, but we're going to try it. This may be a spectacular disaster, but I'm pretty sure we can do that. All right, so there is our in all of its glory. So really what the progress indicator or progress bar, if you're from other languages and frameworks, just shows a progress so the user can see. So we would say we're at 0% all the way up to 100. Now the progress indicator, notice 100% is actually a 1.0. Anything less than 1 means it's not there. So this is 56 or 0.558, blah, 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 blah. So just be mindful when working with the progress indicator that you have to give it that. You can't say it's at 50%. You have to say 0.5. Pretty simple, pretty easy to learn. Hope you guys found this educational and entertaining. I just like doing this. It's kind of fun. But if you did find this educational and entertaining, be sure to visit my website, voidrelps.com, for the source code for this and all of the tutorials. They're all out on GitHub. If you notice any mistakes, definitely contribute. It helps out quite a bit. And everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 33rd Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about something called a drop-down button. And I looked in the widget catalog and all through here, and I could not find what I was looking for. I had a simple user feedback saying, hey, where's the combo box? And I dug through this whole thing. I couldn't find it. If you're wondering what a combo box is, it's just simply a little box or button that you can click a down arrow and it gives you a list of items to choose from. And I could not find that anywhere. It actually exists, even though I couldn't find it out in their documentation. we're going to work with it today and see how it works. It's been a little temperamental for me. This is the third time doing this tutorial, and I'm a little flustered with Flutter right now. But it may actually be something I'm doing wrong, not Flutter itself. Also, big disclaimer, it's way past when I should have eaten, and I've got a slow cooker full of food downstairs. Then I can smell it all the way up here, and it smells just amazing, and I'm starving. So hopefully this will actually work this time. Otherwise, I'm just going to set this video aside and go eat. All right, so we're going to just do our boilerplate code here. All right, so let's do this. Run app. Yeah, told you I was hungry. New material app. Here we go. All right, I'm having nothing but problems here. All right, there we go. I'm going to create the state here. And now in the state, we're going to actually do a little bit of work here. So we've got our main, we've got our my app. Now in the state, what we need to do is actually not just define what we're going to build, but we also need to initialize a few things too. So we're going to say string value equal null. And then we're going to say list string values equal new list of the type string. It's 2016. I gotta start using the shorter method of doing that. Anyways, then we're just gonna hit Control O on the keyboard, and we are going to go to init state, and we're gonna override this. Now, what init state does is it says, hey, when this is loading up, we want to initialize the state. So let's actually initialize this. We're going to say values dot add all, and from here we're going to actually add all those items in there, and then our value is going to be values dot element at, and we're going to give it the 0 position. Why not? Probably makes sense if that was also a private variable here. There we go. So now we are initializing the state, and no state is complete without the build function, but we're not there yet. We want to actually do a void unchanged string value. We're going to, you guessed it, set the state here. That way, when we get to the control, which we're going to get to here in a second, and we do the on change, we can just plug it right in there and it just magically works. Now we're going to say widget, build context, and we are going to return a new scaffold. Man, dinner is smelling really good, and I'm getting really hungry here. I don't know if you guys can hear my stomach growling, but it's almost comical. All right, so at bar, new text. Oops, nope, we don't want new text. We want new at bar. Then in there we'll say title. And drop down button demo. Longest title ever. All right, so in the body We want a new container. Padding, new edge inset all. We're going to say 32.0 because that's what we've been using for all of these. Child, we'll say new column. And new children. Whoops, not new children. On the children property, sorry. There we go. Whew, that's a lot of typing. Fingertips actually get a little numb when I type that much. Alright, so in here now, we're going to make the magic actually happen. We're going to say new drop down button. Notice how it wants a list of items and it wants the on change. So let's break this down a little bit. So the on change is pretty easy to work with. We're just going to add in what we had before. And we're going to say on changed. That way it'll plug right in and set our state. Now items, this is where it gets a little bit different here. We want to take the values and we want to map them. You notice how it's saying string and then it's to a function basically. So what we got to do here is we're going to say map, and there's our little indicator that that's a function. And we're going to say toList down here. And in here we want to say string value. So if you're not completely sure what's going on here, we're saying values, which is just a list of strings here. And we're going to map. And what map does is it goes through every single item in that list and performs a function on it. And that function is going to be right here. And then we're converting that map back into a list. So we're going to say return new drop-down menu item. So yep, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're just making a list of drop-down menu items. And this is suddenly complaining about something here. Let's see here. Could not print blah 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 type T. All right, so let's say value. All right, so we have our drop-down menu item here. And we are just going to work with this a little bit. So our value here would be, of course, the value. And the child would be a, we're going to do a new row here, just to show that even in the individual items, you can actually do some pretty complex things here. Children is going to be a list of widgets, and we're going to say new icon icons.home new text. And we are going to just format this. We'll say person is, we'll say person, here we go, value. If you're wondering where value is coming from, it's actually coming from right here. It's coming from our map function. So each item in that list is going to be a variable called value, which is going to get shoved down into this function. And then in this function, basically what we're doing is we're saying make a new drop-down menu item and add in a value, add in a row. In that row we have an icon and then the actual text. All right, so we have no issues that we can see. Let's go ahead and fire this up, see if this thing works. Now the few other tutorials that I did with this, I actually got to this point, I would build it, run it, and it just would not work on the device. It would spew out some horrendous error message and I'd have to figure out what was going on. And I would verify, you know, the code, what I wrote versus the code in my notes, because what I do is I'll actually write the tutorial on another OS. I actually write it on a Mac. And then when I record the videos, I actually come to Linux and I type all this out that you're seeing now. But it appears this time it has worked. So I'm going to guess it's just something that I had been fat fingering. But here is our drop-down list in all of its glory. And you notice how you have an icon, you have the formatted text of person equals. Now, some of you are probably wondering what happens if you don't set the state. Well, you'll still see the drop down, but when you click, it never changes. So it would just get stuck at whatever the value was. So that's all for this tutorial. Pretty simple, pretty easy to work with. It's actually kind of fun to keep clicking. Some little caveats I would note is that on some phones, if you have a huge list, it won't scale correctly and it won't scroll. So if you have like a gigantic list, you should use something called a list view, which is what we're going to do in the next tutorial. That's all. Thank you for watching. If you're so inclined, you can go to my website, voidrumps.com, grab the source. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 34th Flutter tutorial. Alright, today we are going to cover the list view. And I actually didn't find it out in the widget catalog, but if you go to the sample catalog, they actually have quite a few of them out here. Like I think that's one, that's definitely one. And they use something called a card, which we're also going to add in here. But we're not going to do any of their tutorials. We're going to do something totally different. If you have no idea what a list view is, some good examples just by doing Google Images Flutter list view, you can see some really good examples. You can have, compound controls. When I call compound, I mean there's more than one thing in there. Like there's an icon, there's a text, and there's a checkbox, things like that. You can make some pretty interesting combinations of things. So really, it's just a list that shows things going from top to bottom, and you can add different things in there. So that's what we're going to be working with today. We're going to do a pretty basic example. List views can get very, very complex very fast. So import, and we're going to say package, Flutter material. All right, we're just going to set up our normal application here. All right, there's that. Extend the state of my app here. All right, let's get rid of that because that was rather annoying. All right, so now that we got our my app here, we're going to override, and we're going to say make a new state for our stateful widget. All right, then in the state, this is where the action is really going to happen here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to make a list of Boolean values. And then we are going to override the init state. Don't know where that little semicolon came from. Whenever I do something like that, it really just kind of scares me. I'm like, oh no, what did I just screw up? All right, so here we go. We're just going to set the state on this. And we're going to say for and we're going to say we're going to just set everything to false by default. And then we are going to, my fingers are cold. It is like freezing outside. Even with the furnace going full blast, it's still cold in here. All right, now we want to return, not rect, return new scaffold object. Going to make an app bar, and on that we're going to say the title. And we are just going to say this is a list view demo. All right, so now this is where things get a little bit different here. We're going to say a new list view. And you notice how there's a couple different these. There's list view with normal, list view.builder, and list view.custom. We're going to cover list view.builder because this is kind of like the standard of what almost everybody's going to be working with here. Custom is obviously pretty self-explanatory, or not self-explanatory. It's when you want to do something completely out of the left of field there. Where list view itself, I think you actually hand it a list of things and it just kind of tries to figure out what you're doing. I've had nothing but problems with that. So I always use list view.builder. You see how the first thing it wants is an item builder. And this takes a little bit of explaining, but it's very simple to understand. So when you have a list of items, and let's flip back to our graphic here, you notice how they're all kind of standard size here. So what this needs to do is it needs to know how many of them there are and what sort of dimensions they really have, so it knows how much the user is going to be able to scroll and things of that nature. So you can see how this is different than, say, this, or even say that. You know, they're just different shapes. So let's go back in here, and what we need to do is really look at this guy, and we're going to say item count equals data.length. That way it knows how many items are in our data. Now the item builder itself, we want to actually turn that into a function here. And we want to say build context. So we can hand over the context if we needed to. Probably help if I spelled get build context right. That was somewhat embarrassing. There we go. And we want the index. The index is going to be the index in the internal array that the list view is going to be working with here. And we're going to tie that into, you guessed it, our list. We should probably put that semicolon there. We're going to have nothing but problems later. So now that we have our item builder somewhat going here, we need to actually do something with this. So what we need to do is, you guessed it, return a new widget. In this case, we're going to return a card. So let's save this. Let's run this, and let's just see what we got so far here. I kind of want to explain it as we go because it gets a little bit in depth, but it's kind of easy once you wrap your head around it. A lot of frameworks, especially in the old days, would not allow you to do some of the things that Flutter's allowing you to do, which is add custom compound widgets in. All right, so you can see there is our app bar, and there is absolutely nothing here. So we need to figure out what's going on here. Probably the first thing you'll notice is that we did not add in the correct data. So we have a new card, and in here we're going to child new container, padding, why not, 32.0 because I love that number, and then child. In the container we're going to have a new column, whoops, new column filled with children, and the children in there are going to be, let's just kind of move this up so you can see it. So there's our index. And then we are going to add in a new checklist title. And the value of this little guy, actually let's break this down so it's easier to see what's going on here. Initialize our hot reload. You notice how as soon as we did this, bang, suddenly we've got items in here because now we're actually using that value and it knows what we're trying to do with it here. And we can scroll. So that's what the list view is really giving us here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to really make these things come to life. We're going to actually drop this down to 5 instead of 32. We're going to set the control affinity, and we want this to be list tile control affinity dot leading. As soon as we do that, that checkbox should jump over. Yep, now it's over on the left. And we're going to fill some of the stuff in here. I don't know what I want to put in here. How about we just say new text? I'm kind of going off script here. There we go. So you notice how this is grayed out. It's because we don't have this on change actually anything. It's just null. So once we fill that in, this will suddenly work. And then we'll tie that in using state so we can update our list in the background. So let's go ahead and do that right now here. All right, so set state. All right, so we're going to say data index value. So we're just setting the item at that index within the list to the value of whatever the onChanged was here. And here we're going to say full value onChange, and then there's our value and our index. Save this. Now suddenly, automatically, it works. Pretty simple, pretty easy to use once you understand. Some key features you really have to wrap your head around is use the listview.builder. It's much easier to work with than some of the others. You'll always have to give it a length, and when you do the builder, just understand that you can put any type of widget out here. So we've actually got, each item has a couple widgets in it. You know, there's a text, and here is a checklist tile, and that checklist tile is actually made up of a checkbox and a text, and I'm assuming something in the background, so you can click way over here too. And it's all embedded inside of a card. So it's pretty awesome the way this works. And we can actually, let's just do this. Perform a hot reload on this. You see how now, whoops, maybe now we have to rerun the whole thing from start. There we go. So now it'll just go and go and go, and we've got all the way up to 1,000. Pretty simple, pretty easy to use, and personally I like it. I mean, compared to other frameworks out there, it is just ridiculously simple to work with. If you've ever had to juggle like list view adapters and models and things like that, it's such a pain. This is so much easier. So what you should really tie into is you'll have some sort of back-end data. In this case, I just have a list of bools, but you can have a list of any sort of class and then have the data inside of that class. So you could have a list of people, a list of dogs, a list of pets, list of airline tickets, whatever. As long as you're tying that back in through the individual render here in the item builder, you're good to go. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Be sure to check out my website, voidrealms.com, for the source code for this and all of the tutorials. It's out in GitHub. Ta-da! And I think they're under Flutter tutorials, at least they better be. And hey everybody, it's Brian, and welcome to the 35th Flutter tutorial. Today we're actually not going to do a whole lot of coding. I'm going to show you how to set up a live template. Here's why. Every tutorial, you see me type out the same old, design pattern. And I think we've solidified that in our brains now, what everything does. And I make a lot of typing mistakes, and it takes me a while. And usually the first 5 or 10 minutes is nothing but me typing very badly, I might add. So, so like we'll say class my app extends stateful widget, and then of course we do this class underscore state. And what we can actually do is we can use what's called a live template. So if you just type S, and you'll see there is some right here. So there's a stateful. We're just going to say stateful widget. Double click on that. And bang, it types most of this out for you. That's called a live template. And we're going to actually just fill this in a little bit here. And then we're going to say run app. New material app, the home property of new my app. And then down here we have a, why is that returning a container? That's just weird. New scaffold. And then in the scaffold we're going to say app bar equal new app bar. Title equal new text. Name here, and then see body. Whoops. Here we'll do a new container. Padding, edge insets. Whoops, let's do a new edge insets. Do a new column and children. We'll just say new text. Add widgets here. And let's just run this just to make sure that everything is exactly the way we expect it would be. I got my emulator already up and going here. All right, so this will be the kind of design that we're choosing, the design pattern, which is pretty standard for a Flutter tutorial or a Flutter application. So we'll have an app bar, and then we'll have our widgets here. Now what we're going to do is take this whole thing and just cut that, and we're going to go to settings. And if you don't have IntelliJ, I'm sorry, I don't know if your IDE of choice will actually support this or not. You may have some IntelliJ variant though. And anyways, we're just going to make sure you're in the Flutter, and you're just going to add a new live template, and we'll say Flutter tut, and here we'll say Flutter tutorial. And we want to make sure that it is in shortened, fully quantified names, no application defined. We want to do Dart top level, and then just paste that text in there. Hit apply, hit OK, whatever you want to do. Now we should be able to just say Flutter tut, and bang, there is all the code. That will shave about 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how horrible my typing is that day, off every tutorial. And we can just move on from there. I think we understand the concepts of stateful versus state and stateless and all that. So that should save some time. And that's it for this one. We will resume the Flutter tutorials in the next video. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian. Welcome to the 36th Flutter tutorial. Wow, it's hard to believe we've done 36 of these. Today we're going to cover the drawer, which is a material design panel that slides in horizontally from the edge of a scaffold to show the navigation links in an application. I know you've seen these, but sometimes you got to see it to really understand it. So we're going to cover it. First thing we're going to do, if you followed along in my previous tutorial, we made a live template, so it'll save a lot of typing. So I'm just going to pop open the live template here, and that imports our Flutter material design package. It has a main which does the run app, which starts the material design application. The home property of that is a new my app, which is a stateful widget, which has a create state or a underscore state of the my app. You should understand all those concepts before really proceeding further here. In there, we just have a simple template of a scaffold with an app bar and a container with some widgets in there. We're just going to run this so you can see what it looks like with the default configuration here, just in case you missed the previous tutorials. So really this is all this looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a little button here that when we click that, the drawer is going to slide out. We'll have a array of widgets that we can put in there. So without further ado, let's just dive right in here. So the scaffold has another property that we haven't really played with called drawer. And in the drawer, we can add, well, pretty much anything we want. So say child, and we're going to say and let's just say, why not? Let's just do 32.0 just because I really like that number. And the child, as you can understand now, the design pattern we've been following, whenever you say child, it expects a widget. Or when it's say child or children, it expects a widget. So we can put literally anything we want in here. So we can say new, text, hello drawer. And let's, actually I think hot reloading actually did take it. I don't have to reload the whole app. So now we have hello drawer. Pretty cool, huh? So what can we do with this? I mean, well, pretty much anything we want. We can put any widget in there that we want. So let's just add a few things and show how to kind of close this and do what we want to do with it. So we're going to say new column. And then we'll have an array of widgets here, and we'll say new text. Oh, I should have just kept that hello drawer. And then here we'll say new, let's do a raise button, because we've worked with the raise button before. And we are just going to say it's going to be a red button. And let's give it a child of new text. And the on press, we are just going to say navigator dot, and we're going to pop it under the current context. So what that will do, and I'm just going to run the whole thing over again just in case hot reloading doesn't take that. So what that will do is we have our drawer, and then we have a text widget or anything else we want to put in here. For example, we have a red button that says close, and we click that, boom, closes the drawer. But you can put anything you want in here. You can put images, you can put text input fields, check boxes. Typically what a drawer is used for is for navigation. So you'd say that, and then you have like, account, settings, map, details about whatever you wanted to do. But we just wanted to cover the basics of the drawer class and how to get it open and closed. So that's it. Very simple, very powerful widget. It's actually part of the scaffold itself. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this educationally entertaining. For the source code for this and all other tutorials, go out to my website, voidrealms.com. It's out on GitHub. And feel free to join the Void Realms Facebook group. We have 1,700 plus programmers out there, all walks of life. We can definitely help you with your problems. Hey everybody, this is Brian, and welcome to the 37th Flutter tutorial. Man, we're getting close to 40. We're cranking through these. And we're doing it very quickly, which shows just how fast and easy Flutter is. I don't mean to sound all evangelical about it, but Flutter is actually pretty awesome. So today we are going to do the floating action button. It's a little red button here. I'm sure you've seen it in like email applications or maybe Facebook or something like that. So we're going to go here. We're going to use our live template, which we created in tutorial 35. And you should know what all of this means. We have our main, we have our my app, which extends stateful, and we have the state of the my app. If you have no idea what any of those means, please rewind, watch the previous tutorials. All right, so now that we have our bare basic application here, what we're going to do is start working on the state. So we're going to say string, whoops, and we'll call this last press equal, and we're just going to say never. So what we're going to do is really just print on the screen when they actually press the button. So let's get this in here and we'll say last pressed I gotta say, while I'm kind of typing this crud out, I'm really surprised at the feedback I've gotten on Flutter. For something that's an alpha and not very well known, my inbox has been pretty well flooded. All right, so now that we've got kind of a rough idea of what this is going to do, how do we add the button? Well, in the scaffold, this is why we love the scaffold, there's a floating action button property, and we just simply say, kind of like the drawer, new floating action button. And you notice how there's an on press because this is a button and we need to manage that button press. So we're going to just pop that down so we can work with this a little bit here. And we're going to say child, new, because we want to add an icon in there. And we're going to say icons dot, I don't really know what to add, timer, why not, timer. And then we're going to just change the color. So we're going to say background color equal colors.red. Why not? And then we just simply fill in the on pressed. And we need to make a function here. So let's put this back to null. And this is where the magic's really going to happen here. We're going to say print, just for debug purposes. And then we're going to say set state. And we're going to say date time, current equal new date time dot now. That way we get the current time. And then we're just going to simply say last press equal current dot toString. Just raw unformatted toString. There we go. And that should actually, oh no, we got to fill in our little on press here or nothing's going to happen. And voila, we will run this in our emulator here. Pull our emulator over while this is loading. And this should work without any problems. So one thing that I really love about Flutter while this is loading, and it seems like the more I do these tutorials, the more I fall in love with Flutter, is that it's very streamlined, it's very easy to use, it follows a very simple design pattern. You notice almost every single tutorial has followed a similar design pattern to the point I actually had to make a live template. So here's our button, and we click it, you can see there's our last pressed, and there's pressed. One thing I haven't figured out how to do, and I see this in my email program, is you should be able to click and drag that around the screen to reposition it. So if there's an element here on the screen, you need to tap underneath it. Haven't quite figured out how to do that. That may be a future tutorial. I'm sure it's a simple animation or something. They seem to have thought of everything with Flutter. So anyways, that is the floating action button. Very simple, very easy to use. If you found this tutorial helpful, the source code for it and all other tutorials is out on my website, voidrums.com. There's a link right out to GitHub, and you can just crack that open, and it takes you right out to the tutorials. Also, if you're so inclined, be sure to join the Voidrums Facebook group. There's 1,700 and growing other members out there. We can help you with all, I mean, not just Flutter, but I mean all different languages. And last but not least, if you're still watching, this site is 100% funded by your donations. That's why I do not have annoying advertisements in the videos. So if you are working with a company or your startup, you have a few extra bucks, feel free to donate it and I will help fund the website. That's it. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, it's Brian and welcome to the 38th Flutter tutorial. Sorry, my phone made a weird noise. I had some user feedback. I really try to keep up on my inbox, but sometimes it's just impossible. But this one really stood out. It said, hey, I've been doing work in Android and I want to know how to do application lifecycle in Flutter. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, just Google Android app lifecycle. And there's tons of graphics out here that kind of explain there's a created, a started, a resumed, a paused, a stopped. And what is all this? What does it really mean? All right, so if we just do our live template, we're going to run this. Here you see we have the clock application open. It's going to flip over into our app. So this thing is now running. Now what happens if we go back into that? Well, cell phones are not like your laptop sitting in front of your desktop. They run on limited power, they have batteries, and they have power constraints. So what they do is when you put an app into the background, they will pause that app, and when you pull it into the foreground, they'll resume that app. So sometimes, some applications, it's very helpful to know when the application is in and out of the foreground or when it's paused or suspended. So that's what we're really going to look at today. Kind of non-visual. You're going to have to kind of take a little bit of a leap of faith here, but that's what we're going to do. All right, so first thing we need to do is we are going to say with widgets binding observer. Bang. So what this will do is it'll allow us to actually observe the life cycle in pretty much real time. So we're going to do a Control O and just have a look around here. You notice how there is some interesting properties here, like did change locale, did change application lifestyle state. Ooh, that sounds promising. We're done. Definitely add that. And then we're going to just Control O again. And we want the init state. And let's just Control O one more time. And we're just going to have a little peek here. Dispose. There it is. So now what you can see is kind of a pattern here. We got when the state is initialized, or when it's first turned on, when the did change app lifecycle state, meaning when the cycle changed. Did it get paused, resumed, suspended? And then when it's disposed, meaning it's no longer needed. Remember, in Dart, there is no such concept as a deconstructor, so you can't simply say, hey, the deconstructor of this class like you would with other languages. You have to actually track this whole life cycle. Gets a little tricky, but it's really not too hard. So we're going to say print init state, super.init state, and then widgets, widgets binding observer, the instance. Why are you not doing, oh, that's why. Widgets binding instance dot add observer, and we're just going to add this, the current object here. So what we're doing there is we're binding to the widgets binding instance, blah, 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 basically saying we want to observe this object's life cycle. Then in the dispose, we'll fill this out because it's pretty easy. We're just going to do the exact opposite here. I'm going to actually pull this up here so we can see it a little better. And we're going to say, dispose, and we're going to say super.dispose. But we have to do this at the end here. And here we're going to remove observer. So we're going to stop watching this object. Now the magic actually happens right here in this did change app lifecycle state. And what we need to do is just say print, and we're going to just say we're just going to print out the current state, and then we want to actually switch on this thing. So say switch state, and we're going to say case app lifecycle state dot, and we'll say inactive. Paused. Why is this suddenly griping and complaining? Missing, oh, that's why. It knows what we need, so it wants to force us to do everything. So we're just going to add those in super quick. We're going to say paused, we want resumed, and suspending. And then we're just going to grab that because I want those to stand out a little bit here. We'll say inactive, paused, resumed, maybe, and of course suspending. All right, let's actually reload that whole app. And you can see the first thing that happened was init state. Oh, where is it? We'll do a full restart on this thing. It says it restarted. Did I break it? I have a very good knack of breaking things. We're just going to clear everything out of here. Start it again. Maybe that's a bug in Flutter. I don't know. Alright, so we're going to start this whole thing again. Disclaimer alert, Flutter is still in alpha, but I have a habit of just horribly breaking things. So, okay, so there is our init state right here. Bang. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually, and you see as soon as we click that, it's still kind of there. It's in the app chooser. You can see how the state equal lifecycle paused. And if we go back, resumed. So that's kind of what it would do. So if we were to, let's just clear this out. What if my Dart analysis is not working? Darn it. I got to figure out why that doesn't work. But anyways, so if we go in here and we just go in here and we open, like, say, the clock, you can see how our app is paused. And then if we just go back in, you can see how the state equals resumed and resume and life goes on. Now let's clear this out and let's actually kill our app and see what happens here. And you can see how lost connection to device, but nothing actually happened. We didn't actually get disposed there. Kind of a little disappointed in there, and it might be a bug in my code, not necessarily in Flutter itself. But it gives you a rough idea of how to actually interact with these. Now, what would you use them for? Well, let's say you're running like a live video feed or something. Well, whenever it gets paused, you want to actually pause that video feed. You want to stop downloading because the user's no longer looking at it and you're just chewing up their battery. And then when it resumes, when they pull it back into the foreground, that's when you would start it again. Init and dispose are a little bit different. Init is where you would like load the settings off the disk or download from Firebase, where dispose would be where you would clean everything up. And I'm kind of a little wondering why I never got a dispose here. I'll have to figure that out. But I hope that answered your question. I know it took me a while to figure this out, and there really wasn't a whole lot of clear examples out on the web that I found. Maybe you'll have better luck. But at any rate, thank you for watching. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. Source code for this obviously will be out on voidrums.com. You just go to tutorials and then GitHub, and be sure to join the Voidrums Facebook group. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 39th Flutter tutorial. Today we are going to be going over date and time pickers. This is kind of a little bit of a complex one. I've had a few questions on how to use this thing. People seem to be mystified about it, and when you go into the documentation, you can see there is a kind of a rough template of what you need to do here. There's a future with a date time, show picker, and it kind of, I don't want to say it's difficult to understand, but for somebody who's new to this, it definitely has a little bit of a learning curve on how to use these things. So we're going to jump right in and just do it. Now, I should note that I am very closely following the source code, the official Flutter GitHub repository. Not on all tutorials, but on this one specifically, I am actually pretty much just ripping out these two functions, simply because it's really the only real way to do it. It's pretty efficient. So just wanted everybody to be aware of that. So we're going to say add our Flutter tutorial live template. If you have no idea what that is, it's because you did not watch the 35th video where I showed you how to build a live template. All right, so we're going to import the Dart async so we can work with futures. And we have our main with our stateful widget and our state. And we're just going to actually build into this thing. And we are going to say date time, date equal new date time now. And we're going to say, what is it, time of day, time equal new time, whoops, I want time of day, not that, time of day, not now. So we're just going to grab the current date and the current time here. Now, what we want to do is write two functions, one to grab the date and one to grab the time. So we're going to say future, maybe if I could spell future, And we're going to say select date. This is, of course, an async. Why are you not popping up on me here? I think I broke my IntelliSense. Let's see if it'll start. Maybe if I did it like this and actually did it correctly. There we go. Man, it's frustrating when you're typing and IntelliSense just decides it doesn't want to work because you didn't know what you're typing to begin with. But anyway, so we're going to say final. And when you type show, you're going to see there's a show dialog, show bottom, blah, blah, blah. We want the date picker. You can see it has a lot of properties. So we are going to term that. I'm trying to figure out why this thing is freaking out on me. It's because it's an async function. We have to await it. There we go. I was staring at the screen going, why is that complaining? All right, so we have our show date picker function, and we want to actually add in the build context here. That way the dialog knows where it's coming from. There's our context. And for our initial date, we want to just say the date. And this is where it gets a little confusing. You have a first date and a last date. Well, you don't want them going all the way back to the beginning of time, and you don't want them going all the way forward to the end of time. So you have to say like new date time, and we're just going to say the earliest they can go back is 2017. Actually, let's say 2016. And we'll say new date time. Earliest thing go is 2019. So we're going to really limit their choices here. Then what we need to do is kind of monitor this thing. If picked, well, that's not even an if statement. What was I thinking there? There we go. Not equal null, and picked is not equal to the current date. We're just adding a little bit of logic here. Actually, I don't want that. Then what we're just going to do is we're going to say print just going to grab that toString, and then we're just going to set state here. And then we're just going to say the date is equal to the picked value. So there is our select date function in all of its glory, and we are just going to just completely copy this. Man, I am really screwed up today. New raised button. Too many positional arguments. What? Oh, I forgot the child. Got a little ahead of myself there. I was like, what are you talking about, Flutter? I know what I'm doing. Unfortunately, I really don't know what I'm doing, apparently. So we're going to say select the date, and it should show the context in there. There we go. So anatomy of this code is very simple. We are going to return a future, which is actually a null. Meaning we're not going to return anything, but we are going to use the async functions for this because this is an async call. We need to await it. So once we've actually awaited for this whole little block of code to finish, then we're going to have this picked value. We're going to make sure it's not null and it's not the currently selected date because we don't want to update a change if no change actually occurred. Then we're just going to simply print out our debug statement, and then we're going to set the state so that we can track this whole thing all over again. Got our little emulator up, and we are going to push this bad boy out. All right, give it a second to build. Oh, what have we here? Semicolon expected on press. What did I screw up? I think that's a pretty self-explanatory error. There we go. So there is our selected date, and if we hit select date, bang, there is the date selector. And go back here, and there is our selected date. We said the earliest we could go back is 2016. Let's actually just test that real quick. Yeah, it won't let us go any further back. If we hit cancel, nothing happens. We select a new date, bang, get a new date. So that works pretty well. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually just put in a new text as a spacer here. Don't like doing that, but I'm just kind of being lazy today. So we're going to add that, and then we are going to actually future with a null. There's our sync function. Get rid of this so we can actually see what we're doing here. And then we want a pretty much same design pattern. Final, time of day, picked, equal, await, and we want the show time picker. And this thing wants a context plus an initial time. So this is going to be pretty straightforward and easy to work with. So we'll give it the we haven't had the context in here. Got a little ahead of myself. There we go. And the initial time we're going to say is the time. Then we're just going to, for the sake of speed here, just copy and paste this. Bang. And we want to copy this. Very similar design pattern. We are just using asynchronous call to the show time picker. We're waiting for that, and then once we get that, we're making sure the picked is not null and it's not the current time, and then we're just saving the state back up. So we are going to just continue with our blatant copy and pasting here. That way it's very simple, very easy to understand. And hot reload should grab that. There we go. So now we can actually choose a time. And there we go, 9:30. And it'll pick it back up where we left off. We could say 7:30, 2:30, whatever we wanted to do. So that, in a nutshell, is the date and time pickers. I hope you found this educational and entertaining. I thank you for watching. And if you're so inclined, the source code for this and all other tutorials is out in my website, voidrealms.com. There's a link to the GitHub. And let me just crack this open here. So you just go down here, you click on Flutter tutorials, and they're all numbered. And you can actually just clone that whole repo so you have all the code. Also, there is the Void Realms Facebook group with 1,700 other programmers out there. Not just Dart and Flutter, all different languages. So if you're working on something completely different, you can ask a question there, and most of the time we can help out. Last but surely not least, this site is 100% funded by your donations, so please consider donating if you got some spare change laying around. Hey everybody, it's Brian. Welcome to the 40th Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to be going over the simple dialog, which, don't let the name fool you, it's anything but simple. It's actually a very powerful and complex piece of code here, so we're going to go over this in detail. First thing we're going to do is bring up our live template. If you have no idea what I just did, go watch video 35 in this series. Alright, so import, and we're going to work with async, so we need the Dart async. And in here we're going to modify our state. So we want string. And boy, I cannot spell answer. That's embarrassing. Alright, so we've got our answer. Now we're going to have a function that sets this. We're going to say void set answer string value. And from here we're just going to do the set state. And from here we're going to say answer Alright, so I just put that little to-do there, so if you're using this as a template, you would say, okay, record it to a file or send it to a database or whatever you were working on. So we have our little set answer there. Now we need to actually show the dialog, and this is kind of the meat of the tutorial here. Null, not num. Geez, what are you thinking there? I'm going to do ask user. This is an async call. So in here, what we need to do is build a simple switch statement. I'm going to say switch. And in here, we're going to say case. Oh, I almost forgot. What we need to do is back up just a bit. Part of what the simple dialog does is it actually can take in a num and display it to the user and get the answer back to them, or get the answer back from them. So we've got our enum here, answer. So we're going to say answer dot yes, and then break. And via the, let's just do this, set answer. Through the magic of copy and paste, we are just going to make a few of these here. Alright, and you could actually process it down here in the switch as most people do, but they're all just going to call set answer because they're all pretty much going to do the same thing here. Alright, now that we've got our switch, we need to, well, switch. We need a value to switch on. So what we're going to do is await the show dialog, and it has a build context and a child, and we're going to actually pop that over there so we can see very clearly what's going on. So the context is just going to be the current context. And the child, we're going to show a new simple dialog. And the simple dialog has got a few properties. And what we're going to do is we're going to say the title and children. So title. Do you like Flutter? And for the children, see, that's an array of widgets, so we can add literally anything we want to this. We could say, like, you know, raised button, or we could say text, or, you know, radio, or whatever we want. But there is a widget specifically for this thing, and it's a new simple dialog option. Let's get the simple dialog option in there. And the simple dialog option has an onPressed, which we're just going to say null for now, and a child property. And the child, we're just going to say add a couple little, you know, things in there. And for the onPressed, let's do navigator dot pop, and it takes the context and it takes a dynamic result. So the dynamic result is going to be answers dot yes. So really what we're doing is when this is pressed, we're going to pop the navigator under the current context with that enum value right there. And we just grab this little guy. And I'm sure there is a much more streamlined way of doing this, but I want it to be very obvious what this program's doing. Expected to find, oh, dirt, completely forgot. So much for copy and paste saving us time. And then we have our maybe. We have the skeptical maybe in there. So just to kind of recap here, this function returns future null, which means we're actually not returning anything. It's an asynchronous function. It's asynchronous because the show dialog is async. We have to await on that. We're going to switch on the value returned out of that. And what this does is it takes a enum, which we have up here, and basically says, hey, which one of these do you want? So you have simple dialog option that has the enum values in it, and you are popping the navigator, meaning pushing that data back. I shouldn't say pushing, you're popping the data back. That's the correct way of saying it. All right, now what we need to do is just simply say, there's our answer. We're going to say new raise button. Just going to say click me, and then of course we are just going to say bang bang and ask the user. Now this should work. Let's bring this up in our emulator. Seems to be taking a long time to compile these days. I really didn't do anything super complex. I wonder if it's my computer. There we go. So we have a you answered blank, and if we say click me, do you like Flutter? Yes, no, maybe. And we're going to say yes because we love Flutter, and it says answered yes. So you can see how you can pretty much do anything you want here. Now, the really neat thing about this is you can add other things because it is a, where is it, a array of widgets here. You're not just constrained to the simple dialog option. You can say something like I have no idea what to put there, just icons.home or something like that. Hot reload should take care of that. And then we have a home icon at the bottom here. You can put buttons, icons, whatever you want. It's actually very, very convenient. So if you wanted to do like a radio list group, so you have radios to check from or check boxes, or do you like Flutter maybe, and then like a little input field or something like that, you can do all of that. It's very, very straightforward. So that's it for this tutorial. I'm going to click yes because I like Flutter. Thank you for watching. You can find the source code for this and all of the tutorials out on my website, voidrealms.com. And be sure to join the Void Realms Facebook group. I can't push that enough. Everybody sends me emails and questions. Join the Void Realms Facebook group. Ask questions out there. There's 1,700 other programmers because I'm not always available. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Brian and welcome to the 41st Flutter tutorial. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I've been getting a lot of feedback and some people kind of want to see a quote-unquote real-world application. So we're going to make a quote-unquote real-world application. I don't edit my videos, so you see all the successes, challenges, and complete and utter failures and spelling mistakes. So there may be parts of this you're going to want to fast forward through. I try to whip through it pretty quickly, but being what it is, it usually is filled with errors. So we're going to make a pizza ordering app. Now, while this won't actually order a pizza, it will be the skeleton from which you could order a pizza if you had your own pizza company. So from here, we're going to create a directory. We'll call this screens. And we want to create another directory here called images. Now you notice how images is actually at the root. It's not down in the libs here. And we want to create another directory here called code. I'm just kind of showing how I break things up a little bit here. All right, so what we're going to do here is we are going to build an application that allows the user to order a pizza and select toppings and size and things like that. And I'm going to start the emulator up and kick that off in the background while I'm sitting here talking. All right, now first thing we want to do is create a Dart file here. And we'll just call it pizza. And we're making this in the code folder. And this is going to be the actual state of what we're saving here. So class pizza. And in the past, what we've done is we've had the state per page. And what we're going to actually do in this is we're going to make this class on one page and then hand it off to another. And we're just going to make the list of pizza sizes that are available. Oops. And we're making this static because we want to be able to access this from outside of a instance of the class. And you'll see what I mean here in a little bit. All right, now we want to say string size, the initial size that we're going to let them choose, equal sizes dot element at, and we want 0. That has to be static or we won't be able to use that as an initializer. And then we want the map we're going to call this toppings. Man, caps key didn't want to work there. I've been asked a lot of questions like how many of Flutter apps have I built, what have they been used for, things like that. Really, they've been a lot of internal prototypings of future projects that I'm working on. I've actually been looking at getting I want to say a prototype up and built for a big project. And I've been looking at different, make sure I spell pepperoni right, or I'll never live that down. All right, there we go. Yeah, you guys will never let me live it down if I spell it, although I always misspell everything. It's like a curse. But anyways, I want to find just like the perfect mobile framework to work with, and it's got to be cross-platform, and it's got to be a few things. And it's got to work with Firebase and Facebook integration, and it can't cost money. It has to be open source. There's a few requirements for this project, and that's what really led me to Flutter. So we're going to add just some toppings here. Pineapple. Usually I'm like a pepperoni, sausage, extra cheese kind of guy. I don't really like pineapple on sardines, and I'm just adding a bunch of weird stuff. Onions, I guess those are right. I usually just pick them off, throw them in the trash. Mushrooms. Let's see, peppers. I don't know. I got to think of some crazy stuff here, like, I don't know, pickles. We'll call it the pregnant pizza. Maybe chocolate. Not sure. Jeez, I misspelled chocolate. That's embarrassing. All right. What else could you throw on a pizza? I'm just trying to think of some really off-the-wall whack. Bananas. Why not a banana pizza? Banana. There we go. And one more. Why not? What could we throw on a pizza? Olives. There we go. All right. So really what this class is going to allow us to do is hold the state in memory as we pass it from one page to the next. And we've got the size, or I should say the sizes that are allowed for the user to pick. The default size, which is going to be the first one when this class is first created. And then we've got a map of toppings, and they are all false initially. All right, so that is in our code file here. Now we got to create some screens. Dart file, here we go. call this home. Home is kind of like always my de facto. What I'm doing next is going to just build out the rest of them. We want order. This will be where they actually order the pizza. And I've got to kind of slide my notes here a little bit. And then one more, which we will call review. This will be actually after they've selected the pizza and their toppings, and then they want to review their order before submitting it. That's kind of like the typical way of doing something. So we're just going to, because these depend on each other, we're going to work backwards here. So what we're going to say is import, and we're going to import the package Flutter material, and then we're going to import the package pizza demo. And we want to be in code, and we want to import the pizza.dart file. That is our code file that has all of the state goodness here. Then we'll say class, review, extends. So we want the stateless widget because we're not going to hold any state here. And we want the pizza called pizza order. And that's just going to be null initially. And then we want a list with string. And this is what we're going to just kind of convert our pizza order to. And we could have wrapped this functionality directly into the pizza class, but I just kind of wanted to separate it so you could really see. All right, so we've got that and that. Now what we need to do is let's just get rid of this complaint here. Override widget build context. All right, that is going to include the body here, so we need to return a scaffold. There, now it'll stop complaining for a minute. All right, so a couple things need to happen on the review page, and this is the final page right before they submit their order, is we need to actually take the existing order and render it out for them to view, and then, you know, basically have a button for them to do something with. So to render that out, we need to actually create a list, and then we're going to present a list view to the end user. So what we're going to say here is review. This is the constructor of the class in case you were still fairly new. So to use this class, you're going to have to hand us an existing order, basically. Without that, you just can't create it. I'm going to say pizza order equal order. And then from here, we are just going to say, we're going to add the value of the size. So we'll say size equals, and then we want the there we go. And then we're just going to say list.add, and we're just going to add a blank line here. And then we're going to save a little bit of time here. And we are going to say pizza order.map, actually toppings.map. This is why I put it in a, not map, this is why I put it in a map so we could do the for each. And then we're just going to say bang bang, and then do that. Create our anonymous function here. So then we got the name and the value, and we're going to say if value, then kind of add the name there. So pretty easy to understand. When we create an instance of this review.dart, we are going to take the existing order out of the constructor, we're going to add it into our pizza order variable, and then we're going to generate a list which we're going to present to the user in the form of a list view, which we've done before. So down here in the scaffold, we are going to say app bar, new app bar. Why are you messing up on me here? Oh, title, okay. Say review pizza order. And then in the body, we're going to say new container. Going to do 32 padding, and let me get rid of this little bottom thing so we can see what we're doing here. Now, child, we want a new column. And in the column, we will have the children. And then we have our array of widgets. So we're going to say new text. And let's actually break this down a little bit here. And we want the font weight to be the font weight bold. So we're just going to boldface that, review your order. And now that we got that, I think I'm just going to collapse that back down into one long one, just to keep it nice and neat. Sometimes I get overly picky about this sort of stuff. All right, so we have our text. Now, this is something that, you know, if you're kind of zoning out on me, you're going to have to kind of pay attention to a little bit here. What we want to do is add a list view like we've done in the past. The problem is if your list view goes outside of the bounds or the visible area of the material that you're working with, it will display this ugly yellow and black bar, and you'll probably see that later on in the tutorial, but I'm going to add this just to get rid of it. It's a new expanded. And what expanded does is it, well, expands as far as you need it to go, really, without getting overly technical. And from this, we're going to say new list view dot builder. And then, of course, we do our item builder from that. So what we need to do now is let's break this down. We've got our item builder null. And let's do shrink wrap is true. That way we don't run into any bounding issues. Item count is equal to the list that count. Whoops, list that length, not count. And then for our item builder, this is where we want to say context. Oh, what is this thing complaining about? Null can't be assigned to the parameter type. Well, we're not giving it null. Oh, I know what we missed. There we go. That should make it happy. So in here, what we need to do now is break this item builder out and actually have it build the items. We've done this before, but you know, just so we understand what's going on here. We're going to just simply return a new text. Pretty simple what we're building here. Let's get rid of that. And we're going to return the element at index. So really we're just saying, hey, the list.length is the item count for the item builder. We're just going to go through each item and then print out each line of that list. Pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. There is our review page. And now working backwards, we're going to go to our order page. Actually, I think we're going to fast forward. We're going to go to the home page because I want to actually run this and display something here. So I'm going to say import, and we'll say package, and we'll do the Flutter material package. Class home extends, and we want the stateless widget because we're not holding a state at this point. And we want to override the build function. I've had a couple people ask me, not just with these Flutter tutorials, but other tutorials, how hard it is to actually make a tutorial, and it's pretty challenging. Trying to think, type, and talk all at the same time is not really my forte. As you can see, I'm making some very gnarly little mistakes here. So the home page is going to be very simple, but there's going to be a key element that I don't think we've gone over yet. We're going to just, how to display an asset image. So what we're going to talk about is getting that in there. So we'll say app bar equal new app bar, title equal new text, pizza demo, why not? And then from here we're going to say body, just get our padding in there, and then we're going to say, do I want to center this or I want to just column it? I think I want to just, I want to back this out a little bit. I do want to center that. There we go. Whoopsie. There we go. There. So we're just going to center this container, and then in the container, make a new column. And then in our children's, we're just going to have simply two widgets in here. We're going to have the image asset and the raise button. Now, before we do the image asset, this is going to be key. We have to actually add the image in. So we're going to go to, I have this little pizza image. If I can just blow this up, that's what it looks like. So I'm just going to copy this, literally copy it, and then go over to my images folder and paste it in. And make sure that it's in there. Now, I do want to check one thing real quick. I think it's this pubspec.yaml file. And yeah, you see how it didn't add the asset in. So we're going to have to add that in. So let's, and it says literally to add assets to your application like this. So we're just going to go bang, bang, and we're going to say images, and we're going to say pizza.png. Pretty sure that's what it's named. And that's the full path to it from the base or from the root. So it's in /images/pizza.png. Just make sure that is in there. All right. PubSpec's been edited. Pub failed. Ooh, that's not good. What did we screw up here? Let's go back and look at that. Oh, that's why. Let's try pounding that out like that. That should work. Okay. So if you're wondering what the heck that was all about, it's got to be tab indented. There's a certain parser that runs in the background, and it wasn't tabbed. So putting that tab in there, suddenly it magically knew what I was talking about. All right. So what from here, we're going to say new, and we're going to say image dot asset. Whoops. I screwed that one up. Say new image dot asset. There we go. And then it wants the fully qualified name here. So we're going to say image. And then from there, we are going to say new raised button. And then expand this out. And we don't have the navigator in there yet, so let's work on our main real quick here. And we want to import the material app. We want screens and we want home.dart. Right now I'm on a mission just to get that home page showing, so. And we're going to do a run app. My app doesn't exist yet. We're going to build that super quick. And then we'll say class, my app. And we're going to extend a stateless widget. Now from here, we need to override, you guessed it, the build. And then we're just going to simply do navigation like we've done before. We're going to say return, new material app. And then from inside the material app, we're going to do our navigation. What is this thing griping and complaining about? Did I build an app? No, it doesn't. Subtype, blah, blah, blah. Why is that complaining? Widgets, build context. Did I misspell something? See, this is the part that drives me nuts about not editing my videos, because you'll sit here for about 20 minutes watching me trying to figure this out. Invalid override. Build context isn't a subtype. Of course it is. Oh, I see what it is. It's not widgets, it's widget. Derp. Now I feel stupid. Alright, so there's our material app. And there we're going to say title. And we're going to say navigation. And then, of course, our routes. And we want the widget builder. Now that we've got our string widget builder, we are going to simply say bang, bang, and then create our routes. And we're just going to copy and paste this bad boy, because why not? Save some time. And from there, we can just copy and paste this whole thing and make our 3 routes. Home, order, and review. Boom. And we're just going to, let's flesh out this order page real quick. We're just going to do the bare minimum on the order page. All right, import package material. And then we're going to say extends the stateful widget. And then we're going to override the state, which doesn't exist yet because we're going to build it here in just a second. Always makes me nervous when I type things out before I've actually created them, because then, you know, IntelliSense isn't helping me, and I have a nasty habit of typing faster or slower than I think sometimes, or faster than I think. So we are just going to make the state of the order, and then we're going to, you guessed it, override the build. And from here, we're just going to return a new scaffold. And I kind of want to mess with this one last just because this is going to be kind of the meat of the application, and I really want to make sure we get this right here. So we're just going to say new center, and then in there we're going to say child equals new container, and then child equal new, what do I want to do here, new column. And we'll just leave that blank for now. I'm going to add the padding in there. Edge insets all 32.0 because that's kind of my favorite here. All right, so now it's time for us to actually try to give this thing a build and make sure it actually runs. We've got kind of the bare bones of our application. And so the main Dart file, we are going to, actually we need to import some things, so this is going to complain. Order, and then review. All right, now it should kind of somewhat run. So our main Dart file, we just have our material app, and in there we have our routes. The goal of this is to bring up the home, and we're going to see if we can get that to work real quick here. We are actually missing a piece here. Home equal new home, otherwise it won't do anything. There we go. So we're going to have our initial route in there. All right, let's give it a whirl and see what breaks and what works. Pull up our Android emulator here. I've had a few questions about why I use the Android emulator instead of the iOS emulator. It's very simple. It's just because I'm programming on my Linux machine. If I was programming on my Mac, I would have a choice of both, which you could probably just do both at the same time. I haven't really gotten into that simply because I have my microphone plugged into my Android box. Android box has been kind of my main development box. All right, so there is our home page, and the order button is grayed out because we haven't put that in there yet. We're going to do that navigator next. But you can see there's our beautiful pizza icon, and we're going to just start fleshing this thing out. So let's switch over to home, and there's our onPress is null. We're going to say onPress bang bang, and then we're going to say, whoops, the navigator dot of context, and then we're going to just do a push name. And we're just going to push over to the orders page. Hot reload should grab that. Yeah, now we can actually click our button. And nothing happened. Oh, I think we're missing something here. Import package. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Pizza demo screens order. I bet we just forgot the import here. Let's try that again. Hot reload, and nothing happened. This should work. Let me rerun the whole thing. Maybe it just didn't pick it up. If it doesn't run this time, I'll actually read the error message. I'm not a fan of modern day error messages. Ah, come on. All right, what's going on here? Blah, 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 blah. Exception caught by gesture. The following assertion. Could not find generator of route orders. What? We have it right here. Oh, that's why. Order. Hence, spelling error. All right, let's try that again. Now suddenly it goes to our order page. All right, so we have basic navigation. We have an image, and we're going to start actually just doing the order. The review page should be done, so we just got to really focus on this order page. Once we hammer this out, we should be pretty well done here. So let's flip into order. And we got some work to do here. So we want to import our package, screens review. We want to import the package from the pizza demo code pizza, because we're going to work with that class. We're going to make a simple order here. And from here, we need to actually go into this and actually build our state out. Say pizza, pizza order, equal new pizza. Ah, no IntelliSense, why have you betrayed me? All right, there we go. So we're going to have a couple things in here. We're going to have let me pull this up so you can actually see what the heck I'm talking about here. The way I want it is we're going to have a drop-down box here so we can select the size. And then we're going to have a list of toppings in a list view and then a button at the bottom so that we can actually review the order. It's pretty simple, but it's a little bit of a learning curve to get this to work just right. So let's actually just start working on it. And we are going to say new drop-down button. Drop-down button, where are you at? There you are. And then we have items and null. So what we want to do here is we want to actually give it our template, which is going to be a string, which I'm not sure if that's really needed or not, but we're going to add it in anyways. So our items are going to actually be the pizza class dot sizes dot map, and then we want to map that. I don't think we really want the on change, do we? Yeah, we do. Hold on a second. Let's do this. Let's go. We want our value. We want the initial value to be the pizza order dot size. There we go. That's what I was getting hung up on. Now, what is this thing griping about? Too many positional arguments. What do you mean there's too many positional arguments? Why are there too many? 0 expected but 1 found. What are you griping about here? Yeah, I'm not liking this. Something's going on. Let's just start over on that. New drop down button. Bang. Item null. Oh, duh. I feel really stupid here. Children. Bang. Okay, that makes more sense why it was griping. I was hung up on the button. Anyways. New drop down button. That looks a little cleaner. Okay. Like I said, sometimes typing, thinking, and talking all at the same time really don't mix well. So pizza order dot size. So we want the initial size. And then the on change, we're going to actually make a function here. So let's just mess with that first. We want to do the set size. And let me look at my notes, make sure I'm actually doing this right. Yep. All right, from the set size, we are going to just simply do a set state. And in the set state, you might have already guessed what we're going to do here. We're going to say pizza order dot size equals the size. And we should actually say value. That way we're not really confusing anybody here. All right, now in here, we can actually say our I have to scroll down, make sure I'm in the right spot with my notes here. It gets really confusing if I get kind of off here. And then we want our string value. There we go. Now comes the really confusing part. I really don't like the way that the drop-down button is handled, but it's just is what it is. So for the items, we have to do the pizza order. Actually, no, we don't. Sorry. We need to do the pizza dot sizes dot, and then from here we do the map. And this is where it gets kind of really confusing for people. So we're going to say string value, and then we're going to map this accordingly. And then in the mapped, we're going to return a new, I think it's a drop-down menu item. And then there's our child null. So let's break this out a little bit so we can see what we're doing here. All right, so the initial value of this, or I shouldn't say the initial, the value of this is value. And then the child itself, we're just going to make a new row. and then we're going to have children in here. And in the children, we're going to say new icon, icons, what was it, local pizza or something like that. I found this really cool icon. There we go, local pizza is an icon. I was really surprised when I found a pizza icon. I was like, yay. It's little things in life that really make us happy, you know. And then here we're going to say simply size equals and then the value. Add that in case we decide to mess with any more properties. Hot reload. We're going to actually just start this whole thing over again. Did a lot of typing. I wasn't really trusting hot reload. And boom. We are presented with a big fat error. And we are going to have to figure out... Whoops, nailed my microphone. Alright, let's see here. Type mapped list iterable string, blah, 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 is not a subtype of list drop-down menu. Say what? Mapped list iterable. Alright, so basically what it's arguing about is in here. Oh, I bet I know what the problem is. We didn't give it a type. Nope. Let's just stop this thing again. See what it's griping about here. Map list iterable string dynamic is not a type of list drop-down menu item string. Okay, well, what is the problem with this? So we got drop-down button string. Pizza order sized. Oh, I see what's going on here. Okay, I think I see what's going on here. We're missing a list here. Yeah, to list. That's what's going on. If this is right, I'll explain the voodoo magic that just occurred. Tick tock, tick tock. Let's check our order, and okay, yeah, it's what I thought it was. So now we've got a drop-down list, and we've got the on select, so or on the on change, so it's tracking in the state. So the thing that I was missing here was this dot to list of this whole thing. And if you take that right there, it should highlight it. Yeah, it's on the pizza map. It's in the items. Because the items is expecting a list, and I was just giving it a mapped. So I was just giving it a whole wad of data rather than an actual list, and that's why I was complaining. Some of these error messages. All right, anyways, so we've got this, and this is a major hurdle right there. The rest of this should be, quotey fingers, should be fairly straightforward. All right, so now that we've got that, we're going to new expanded. And I had to actually go into the Flutter live chat they have on their site because I didn't know what the heck was going on with this. I tried just adding a list directly, and it went out of bounds, and I'll actually demonstrate that here in a little bit. And it showed that ugly bar that you guys may have actually encountered by now. All right. Now let's call it continue. All right, so in our expanded, we want to put a new list view in here. I'm going to do list view builder, and as you can see, our item builder is going to be null initially. Let's just get rid of that blank line. That way it doesn't get all confusing. All right, and we can just say shrink wrap true. Probably don't really even need that, but I like putting it in there. And then item count. And the item count here is going to be the length of the toppings, because remember that's a map under the hood. And then the item builder, we want to actually do a non-function here. And in this, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that index. I always forget that. That's my only really gripe about this. Otherwise, it's very beautiful the way that works. Now we're going to return a new checklist title, which we've covered in previous tutorials. Let's put the semicolon up here. And we want to add a few things to this. First thing we want to do is the control affinity. The control affinity, we want the list title control affinity to be leading. That puts the checkbox in the left instead of on the right. And then we want the title. And we want this to be the, oh gosh, what was it? The pizza order, toppings, keys, dot element at, and then the index. Remember, the key is the string, so we want the string portion, not the boolean portion. And then from there, we want our value, and this is going to be, and we can just actually grab this whole thing. What? Come on now. Don't be difficult. Alright, so let's hot reload this to see if it works. Yep, as you can see, there is now our toppings, and there's our button. They're grayed out because we don't have the on-change handler. So let's go ahead and wrap that in now. And let's do this. Set topping. And in the set topping, we of course need a int index and a bool value, because we want to know the index and the value of that. And we are going to, of course, set state. And in our set state, we are just going to very simply say string key equal get the actual key here. And then we're just going to say, set the value of that key. Now we need to wrap this guy into this. So where is it? Right here, onChanged. And onChanged is going to simply be the now it has the index and the value. Let's flip back over. Suddenly they're enabled, and we can actually click and unclick things, and it's tracking that in state as we do that. So every time we select or unselect, it's calling this set topping, and it's going through this little function right here. And we can actually scroll through the list, and we can set the size. Last but not least, let's actually set the on press to this raise button. And we're just going to say bang bang. And this is going to be a little bit different. What we want to do is we want to do a push. And notice how it has a context, and now it wants a route. So we actually have to build the route manually here. So on our route, we're going to say new material page route. And we need a builder here. And I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit. That way we can see what's going on here. The builder, of course, is going to be the build context. And we want a new review, because this is where we're sending it to. Now review, of course, you can see how it just popped up and reminded me order is null. Well, we don't want a null order. We want our pizza order in there. Why is it not doing that? Come on now. There we go. Oh, I know what it's doing. All right, so we are sending our pizza order to it. Let's get rid of that semicolon or it's going to describe and complain. So really, if you're following along, what we're doing here is we are taking that, let me rerun the whole app here. We're taking the class, we're creating it, the class being this pizza.dart file, and then we're manipulating it. So no longer do we have variables locally that we're doing. Well, we kind of do. But now we're going to push this off to the review page. And you can see here's the review your order, and it just has your toppings in there. And we can go back, and the state is still perfectly there. So let's say we only want pepperoni and sausage because that's my favorite, and I'm too skinny to eat a large by myself, so I want a medium. So we have a medium with pepperoni and sausage. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of how that works. Now, some caveats to this is, A, it's not backed up in the cloud. That's a problem. So we will be doing, hopefully, in the near future, Fire-based tutorials. Also, there should be a button down here that you would do a HTTP push to Pizza Hut or Little Caesars or Domino's or whatever you order your pizza from, Bob's Pizzas or whatever. Some other things is the problem with programming. You ever hear the expression, there's more than one way to skin a cat? Kind of a gruesome expression, but there's more than one way to solve a problem. So this may not be necessarily the solution you're looking for. This is just something that I do for simple apps where I just make a class that holds all the settings I need, and I manipulate that as the state and then push that class over in the, where is it? The material page route. I just take that variable, that instance, and just shove it straight over into the other file as part of the constructor here. That way I just get the state. I don't have to worry about rebuilding it, loading it from a database or anything. It's all in memory. It's all good to go. Pretty simple, pretty easy to use. Now, one thing I did want to go over here. Where is it? Order. Expanded. This is what I was looking for here. I'm going to comma that. Whoops. That didn't work out the way I planned it. Please hold. All right, so we're just going to take this whole chunk here, and we're going to comment that out. But we're going to grab this list view and put this in here, just so you can see what happens. And you see already this thing right here. That was the first indicator that something went boom. And when you look at it now, this is why you need that expanded, because the list view goes down lower and it puts this ugly thing here. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out how to get rid of that. That's simply why you put it in an expanded. So we're going to just get rid of that. Uncomment this, uncomment that. Put everything right back the way it was, and suddenly, magically, it works again, and we can scroll down, and life is good. So some key concepts that we've covered in this that I don't think we've covered in other tutorials is how to put an image up here, how to make an expanded, meaning if you try to take that list view and just put it into like a column or something, you need to have an expanded in there. Otherwise, it shows that ugly bar. And how to manipulate the state in another class, basically, or use another class as your state, I should say. And then, just passing that class between them using the material page route. So this is kind of, I would say, not a super elite difficult tutorial, but this is definitely not on the beginner side. So you guys have been wanting kind of a real world example, and I'm hoping this fits the bill. I'm hoping this answers a lot of like organizational questions and how you structure things and how you get images in and how you pass variables back and forth. Whew, that was a lot of talking, and I'm pretty well spent. So for the source code for this and all of the tutorials, visit my website, voidrealms.com. It's out in GitHubs. And join the Void Realms Facebook group. There is 1,800. We just breached the 1,800 mark. 1,800 other programmers out there, all other languages and frameworks. Definitely help you with your problems. And if you're feeling so inclined, like if you're running a business, this site is 100% funded off donations. That's why I do not include advertisements on YouTube. So feel free to donate. That's it. Thank you for watching. Hey everybody, it's Brian, and this is an unofficial tutorial. We are going to cover Flutter, we're going to cover Google, sign-in and Flutter authentication with Firebase. However, I'm not going to make like a full-blown tutorial. We're going to actually try to figure out a problem. First off, in case you've been wondering where the heck I've been at, I've been making tutorials out on udemy.com. Definitely check those out. I know it says they're for sale, but if you visit the Void Realms Facebook group, I'm often posting free coupons out there. So if you're a starving college student, message me in the Void Realms Facebook group and I will give you a free coupon. All right, so the crux of the matter here is we want to use Firebase authentication. And let me back up just a smidge. Let's say you don't know what Firebase is. Firebase is a online, always on, real-time database and storage along with messaging and a whole slew of other analytics attached to it. It's from Google. It's actually kind of amazing. One of the reasons why I picked Flutter is because I highly suspect Google is going to take their Firebase product with their Flutter product and kind of marry them together very tightly, which will make Flutter just hands down one of the best mobile platforms out there. I actually kind of think Flutter's kind of leaning in that direction, but I digress. Anyway, so what we have before you is a very basic Firebase console. I literally just opened this up and said, I'm new to Firebase, hit me. And we have before us, it wants to get started. We're going to actually build a Firebase Android application, but we want to use Google Sign-In. So there's some prerequisites to this tutorial. First thing, I've got a blank Firebase. I have done very little, if any, modifications. The only modification I have done is I've gone into authentication and I've gone into sign-in method and I have enabled Google Sign-In, and you'll have to follow the directions on the screen. You'll have to have like a project, and some people are kind of weary about showing this information. I don't care because I'm just going to delete all this crap when I'm done. So there's Google, and I also did email and password, but we're going to focus on Google authentication. I know there's also like Facebook and Twitter and all this other stuff, which I'm not going to cover in this video. I may cover at some point. So the other prerequisite is that we are going to do an Android application, not an iOS application, because I'm on Linux and I love Linux. So anyways, let me jump over to Android. The prerequisite here with Android Studio is you have to have the Play Store installed on your emulator. I'm using the Nexus 5 with API 27 with Play Store. That means you're going to have a valid email address, and you're going to have to use a valid Play account and all that stuff, and you'll have to set that all up. I've already got the emulator running, right here. So we're going to give that a shot. Whew. That's a lot of prerequisites so far. The other issue is these two packages don't really work well together. If you got the Firebase auth and you go into their homepage on GitHub and you go to issues, you see there's some issues going on here. I have been posting a lot of issues because I'm working on the Flutter advanced tutorials on Udemy, and this thing is not working and it's just straight up pissing me off. So I thought we would just fix this. I went through and did a lot of stuff, and I did figure out how it works. So let's just dive right in and do this. We're going to create a new project, Flutter. I should note you should probably always do Flutter Doctor. I've done it like 4 times today, but so let's call this Flutter Google, because we're going to do a Flutter Google login. And we're going to just hit finish. And it will calculate the trajectory of everything in the known universe. And here we go. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of all this gobbledygook and use the skeleton that I like working with. And then we're just going to run this just to make sure our base application runs out of the box. I should note I'm doing a different video recorder too. I'm using OBS instead of Kazam. So if the video seems a little different, let me know if you like it or hate it. I'm still getting a little used to this recorder. It's got some hotkeys and I keep hitting them accidentally. So, all right. We verified Flutter works, IntelliJ works, our emulator works, our code on the emulator works. Let's dive into actual packages here. Reading Firebase off, the first thing you need to do is, you got to get the Google sign-in plugin, which we've already got here. This has some steps in it which are a little confusing to folks, and I think it's this in a combination with the setup following here that kind of messes this thing up. So there is a Google sign-in instructions, and if you click that, it just literally takes you to the other page that I have here. So we're just going to jump over here. This is a Flutter plugin for Google sign-in, blah, 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 a bunch of stuff we're not going to read. Let's just go here and grab our dependencies. Let's jump into our pubspec.yaml. God, I hate this thing. I don't know why that just won't die a slow death. All right, so let's go into pubspec.yaml, grab that, add that in there, save it, do a packages git. Might as well just kill that on the emulator. Now, we're not done. This is where things get a little confusing. We've got some extra work to do. We need to actually go to the README file and read some stuff. iOS has some configuration stuff. It's got some usage. And what it's saying for Android is that you have to register your application. What does that really mean? What does that really entail? So let's look at this. Of course, it takes us to Firebase, which is where I started down that whole route. So let's jump into Firebase. First thing it wants to do is say, hey, let's do something. So I'm going to add an Android application, and it wants us to register the app. So it needs a package name, a nickname, and debug signing with SHA-1. And let's just dive in here. So package name, it wants to get that out of the app level build Gradle file. So let's go in here, bang, bang. Notice how there's two build Gradles. That gets confusing. This is the project build Gradle. This is the app because it's in the app folder. We're going to crack that bad boy open, and we want the application ID, this guy right here. com.example.flutter Google. Let's jump back to Firebase, and we're just going to paste that in there. We want a nickname. We're just going to give it that right there. This part will just straight out piss you off. Debug signing certificate. It's actually required for this tutorial. How do you get it? If you do this and you right click and open a new tab and see this page, you need something called the key tool. And it even gives you a nifty little blurb here. And you're going to get what's called a SHA-1 or SHA, SHA-1 fingerprint. So let's just crank open our terminal. Make sure you have key tool installed. If you don't have Java installed. So that was my first issue because this was a brand new Linux installation. I completely blew away my desktop and none of this stuff existed. So make sure you have key tool installed. Otherwise, do a Java version. And you should see you have a Java version. Paste in what they tell you to, and boom, you get an error message. So we have to fix this. It's saying you can't do multiple commands at once. After some exhaustive creative Googling, I found out you can just simply delete that little bit about export cert, and it wants a password. Boom. There is our fingerprints. Notice it's giving us a SHA-1 and a SHA-256. We want the SHA-1, so let's just grab that. Copy that bad boy. Go back in here and paste it in. In case you're a wannabe hacker, no, there's no secret sauce to that. It's just the key tool on my local box, which I'm going to generate a new key tool after this video, so have fun using it. I don't care. Now, register the app. This is where things actually get kind of interesting. So we click register, and it wants us to download this JSON file. Why do I say JSON? JSON file. That's the Canadian in me. JSON. It's like saying foot instead of foot. You Canadians know what I'm talking about, but I'm actually American. My family's from Canada. So let's download this JSON file. I know I'm going to get hate mail. Everybody in Canada is going to be like, we don't say JSON, we say JSON. Anyways, show it folder. We're going to grab this and just copy it. In case you're really morbidly curious and want to know what's in there, we can take a quick peek, but we need to put it in a specific location. Notice how we go into the app folder. And this is the confusing bit because this is not a Flutter. That's an Android project, so you'll see a lot of stuff missing there. Let's go in here. We're in our Android folder. We want to go into app, and we want to paste this. It's going to say, are you sure? You're going to say yes. And here's the JSON file in all its glory. This is specific to your application and your Firebase installation. Every application will have their own little JSON file. That's what I love about Android versus iOS development for this, is because it streamlines all of this. You don't have to put any of this nonsense in. It just generates a file and you're good to go. Now, Boom. This is the confusing part. We have to add some stuff to our Gradle. All right, so add the Firebase SDK. We're just going to click that. And this says do it in the project build Gradle. So we'll go in here. We'll go into our build on the project side of things. Probably want to expand that out for this. And we're just going to add in our dependencies. Give that a good save. Flip back into here. Now we need to go into the app level build Gradle. So we're going to copy that. And I've got too many windows open. Back up to here. And it's at the very bottom. Bang. Just going to compile Firebase core. Then we need to apply a plugin of the Google services, the GMS. Copy that. And it says just add it in the bottom, so we'll do that. It's going to apply the plugin. That part is pretty simple. Next, we need to run the app and verify the installation. Notice how it says checking to see if the app's communicated with the server. So we're going to actually build this bad boy, save our work, run it out on the emulator, and we're just going to pull this emulator up. Maybe, if I can find it. I've got too many windows open. Bear with me, bear with me. There it is. This part takes a little bit, and you'll notice when it does eventually come up that it even takes a few seconds longer after the application comes up. Let me actually flip back over here because it's still building. Okay, so the app's up, and it's still thinking. So our app's running, and it's still doing stuff on the back end with Firebase. Now, I think this is just pure latency on Firebase's side. There's some verification checks going on, making sure the app was actually valid, and then the database stores it internally, it replicates out, and then it updates Ajax through the web page. So we're just going to sit here until this thing 100% says it is working. There we go. Congratulations. You've successfully added your app to the Firebase. So we're going to hit continue. All right. So far, that was pretty painless. We have Google sign-in. And if we wanted to, we could actually go in here, go to this example, paste this code in, and ta-da, it would just work. However, we don't want just Google sign-in. We want Firebase authentication. There's a difference here. Google sign-in allows you to sign in using Google services. Google services are different than Firebase. When you look at Firebase, where's my Firebase? There it is. And you look at authentication, you should see user identifications in here. That's separate. You can use Google sign-in without using Firebase. So what this does is it adds a layer. When I say this, I mean this guy right here. Adds a layer on top of Google sign-in that allows you to use it through Firebase. You can do the same thing with Twitter, Facebook, and all this other stuff. It uses their underlying channels to communicate and to authenticate, and then it just simply updates the Firebase database. This is also where we start getting into trouble. So we're going to grab this, and let's go to our pubspec YAML. Throw this out here. Bang. Do a good packages git. Might actually want to stop that. And of course, we are not done with the installation. So let's just throw this import out here just so our program knows we're using it, even though we're not using it yet. And go back to our README file. So it says configure the Google sign-in, which we've already done. Import the plugin, which we did. Now we need to actually add some dependencies here in our project level build Gradle. So let's just grab these. Go to our project level build Gradle. Here's our dependencies. And we're just going to paste those in. Right about now, somebody is screaming at their monitor to comment out or delete these. We're just going to leave it for now and let the program figure out what it needs. Save that. And notice at the bottom of the app level, we're going to apply this plugin. We've already done that, so just for verification that it's the same darn thing, we're going to just comment this out. You can see it's the com Google GMS Google Services plugin, so we don't want to do that twice. This is why, and let me just Flutter off. Google sign in. There we go. This is where I started getting into trouble here when I was doing the Flutter advanced tutorial. This is where things just deteriorated. If we save this and just try to give this a good build and run, it completely died on me. Yep, see, blah. It says minimum supported Gradle versions 4.4, current versions 4.1. Luckily for us, it gives us how to fix this bad boy. So let's go in here, and it says go into this specific file, Android Gradle wrapper Gradle properties .244 all. This is the confusing bit. If you're in the actual editor and you want to go into Android Gradle, you see there's no wrapper folder, and you're like, where'd it go? So let's bring up this. Go to code, Flutter. What are we in? Flutter, Google, Android, Gradle. Suddenly there's a wrapper folder. So the IDE tricks us and hides it from us. Shame on you, IDE. Let's go ahead and open this up in a text editor. And you can see here is the offending line, Gradle 4.1, and it's requiring 4.4. So we're going to say 4.4 all. Save that. Now run this again. And if I remember correctly, we get an entirely different error message, which just will infuriate you, and you'll pick up your keyboard and chuck it across the room, or you just ninja punch it. Yeah, okay, here we go. So let's expand this out. What went wrong? Failed to notify dependency resolution listener. Huh? English, what does that mean? The library, blah, 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 play services, you remember that guy we did in the end of our file there, is being requested by various other libraries at this level here, 1504, but resolves to 1502. I Googled the heck out of that and could not figure out how to upgrade that. Turns out you don't really need to. So let's play around with this bad boy here. Let's go here, and let's go to the very end here. I actually did post it. So we're going to look at our dependencies here, and we're going to look at that GMS services 4.0 right here. Simply commenting out this fixes the issue. How did I find that out? Dumb luck. I just started commenting out things to see where it started working. So let's bring up our emulator here, and we are going to just run this bad boy just to see if we can get a solid build out of this. And this may take a second because it's pulling all that stuff in and compiling it. My chair's getting squeaky. That's going to get annoying. We got some notes. We're just going to ignore that. And should install the APK, which means it built, and boom, there's our program. So let's actually get Google sign-in working. Okay, let's go here, and I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to do the example. I don't like doing this because you have to really pick apart somebody else's coding style and figure out what the heck's going on, but I just want to make sure this thing works. So we're going to completely blow away my code, save this. Hot reload's going to, of course, die, and we're just going to restart this whole thing from scratch and see if it works. What we should have when this thing is done is a nice interface that allows us to do Google sign in through Firebase and still update the Firebase backend. All right, so we're going to test sign in with Google. And it says choose an account, voidrum05, that's my dummy account. Don't ever email me because I'll never answer you. And we've successfully signed in. Boom, sign in with Google succeeded. Let's check our Firebase backend and see what it actually looks like here. And this is the part that's got me a little dumbfounded. It doesn't actually show. Oh, there it is. Yep. voidrum05@gmail. So now we have our user ID on our Firebase backend with our Google provider, and everything is working as expected. And we can copy the UID and all that stuff. So I'm sorry there wasn't a whole lot of typing in here, but this has actually taken me about a week to really figure out why none of this crap was working. And I've been going back and forth on the GitHub page trying to figure it out. So that is how everything works. So if you've at this point and you're really stuck, the big thing to really take away here is, whoopsie, where did I do it? Where did I do it? I just screwed that all up, didn't I? Yeah, I'm in the wrong file, aren't I? Boom, here it is. In the project level build Gradle, just comment out that services for O. Make sure you're doing the Gradle for all in the specific Gradle wrapper properties file, and then it should just work, assuming you have set up the project correctly. The other big takeaway from this is if you skip that step with your application setup and you didn't put in a SHA-1 because you didn't want to screw around with key tool or any of that, this will not work. You need that SHA-1 in your application. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being very patient with me as I'm still grinding away with videos. I know I haven't posted anything in Void Realms in a while, so I wanted to throw this out here first. This is going to be part of a larger thing in the Udemy tutorials I'm going to make. I should say I'm in the process of making Flutter Advanced. There's going to be 6 sections, and I'm on section 5 right now, which is Intro to Firebase, which is going to cover a lot of what we just talked about. And then section 6 is going to be like Firebase storage, Firebase real-time database, how to get information up in there and back and forth. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you later.